Is it because my feet are fat right now, or is it because I like made a bad choice? It was a little of both, honestly. And welcome to Mandobug Crafts, episode 108. What's up, everybody? My name's Amanda, but you may know me on the internet as Mandobug, and this is my crafty podcast that I do, where I hopefully inspire you on your making journey as I share mine. In this video, I have some knitting, spinning, crochet, and a little bit of diamond painting. And then at the end, I'm going to share my newborn with you all and my birth story. So I'll have timestamps down below in the description box like I usually do, so you can skip around to the things that interest you. Starting out with something I've learned. This time since I've last recorded, I have learned a lot about designing colorwork socks. The hard way. Not the hard way of designing them, but the hard way of learning. Anytime you have to do major frogging, it's just, because you know the time that's lost. You know, like, it's sunk cost into that project. Sometimes that makes me abandon it, sometimes I think it's worth it, and in this case, I think it was worth it. So these are what I'm calling the Witch's Brew socks, and I knit these using my hand spun that I shared in the last episode from the Paradise Fibers October Club. And so it did actually turn out semi-striping with muddy in between, which is pretty much what I expected based on how the fiber was prepared and how I spun it. So there's two pair. They're not identical, but you can see they still match as far as that hand spun background yarn. And so my hand spun turned out to be a worsted weight, a pretty heavy worsted weight, at 10 wraps per inch. So I paired it with this black that I had in stash. It's Haiku Kensington, which is a wool alpaca nylon blend, not superwash, and it's a chainette structure that's kind of weak, which is surprising because it has nylon in it, but you can literally just snap the yarn apart, whereas, you know, some of the tougher superwash sock yarns with nylon, if you try to break them with your fingers, it's like you might cut yourself. I might know from experience. No, I didn't actually cut myself, but I really hurt my finger and it left like a line from me trying to break it. All that to say, the nylon in the Haiku Kensington is not strong enough that it stops you from being able to break the yarn with your hands. So that does worry me a little bit because I put it in the areas where it's going to be like tough wearing. So hopefully these socks last despite my choices. I just wanted a matching black in stash and I wanted it now. That's why I pulled from stash. I didn't want to have to order and wait, and shipping of anything right now is ridiculous. So I wanted it now. I wanted that instant cast on, so that's why I chose this yarn, and it matched in weight. So I didn't have to switch needle sizes. I realize I'm just blabbering on about these socks without telling you what I actually learned. So what I learned was you have to have positive ease in colorwork socks. You have to. There's no way around it. I didn't consider that when I designed these socks. I sketched up this design on a piece of graph paper and I filled in the areas within my drawing and kind of adjusted from there. And I set to work on my normal gauge or my normal kind of, how do I describe this? Not my normal gauge, because this is worsted weight. Let's back up. With these socks, I had to make a gauge swatch. And then from there, I decided to do about a -inch of positive ease because I like tight-fitting socks, completely forgetting about this mess that I would eventually get to, right? Because I do my socks toe up. You have to have locked floats when you do colorwork socks, and that is just not a giving fabric at all. So originally when I wrote up the design for these socks, I did do increases. I increased on the leg because my leg is much thicker than my foot, and I wanted it to be tied around my foot and my leg. So I did increases in the original, and then I went up a needle size, actually 2 needle sizes, so I could get at least a full millimeter difference between the 2 needles I was knitting with, and continued to knit the colorwork chart. But because I had designed the socks with negative ease, I couldn't get them over my heel, and they didn't fit. They were too small. It seems like a no-brainer. It's just something I didn't even think about when I wanted to make these. So I got all the way up, almost halfway through the chart, and tried them on and realized they weren't going to fit. And I was still pregnant at the time, so my feet were swollen. So I went through this whole internal debate of, is it because my feet are fat right now, or is it because I made a bad choice? It was a little of both, honestly. But I ripped them out completely, started over again, and they fit. They fit. Let me show you. So I had to rework the math so that there was positive ease so that I can get my foot on easily. And now we have fitting socks that fit my foot nice and tight and my leg nice and tight. But I did find, as I've been wearing these around, they're too loose in my ankle. So I decided to do my leg increases before the chart started because I didn't want to have to deal with increases in a chart because it just looks weird. And, you know, especially because, let me see if I can grab my graph paper and show you. I have all my notes here. I did eventually plan to do a separate video on how I design these socks, but I'm still debating on how I want to make that video. But this was my original chart that I drew and colored in pencil, and you can see I had to put a line right down the middle of it. That's because I wanted my chart on the side of my sock, and that's the beginning of the round. I found it too hard to try to remember to start knitting at that line, so I had to redraw my chart, which you can see here, so that that's the beginning of the round. And you can see here in the original pair I put the increases in the chart, and it's weird just the fact that they don't exist, these stitches don't exist in these rows. And then that's where I got to when I had to frog. So I didn't like increasing in the chart. I didn't like the way it looked as far as making the pattern. So when I had to redo the pattern, I decided I'm going to do the increases before I get to the chart. So this is the actual chart that I followed. And you can see all the stitches in between there. Yes, it's a lot of locking floats, but I think the end results are worth it. But I regret not putting the increases in the chart now, because when I walk around, let me see if I just wiggle my foot a little bit. I don't know if the camera will pick it up from this angle, but maybe you can see it bunching here. Maybe I'm recording in my living room today, so I'm on my couch. Feels very casual. But yeah, it starts to sag because the increases are down there below my actual chart. But other than that, you can see it's nice and tight with some just a little give on the ribbing there. Maybe I could have done a couple more rows of ribbing, but I still don't think that would stop it from slouching in my ankle because my increases are down below where they should be, because my ankle is not as big as the rest of my leg. So yeah, lots of learning with these. I would like to eventually write this pattern up and make it available, and I do have some ideas floating around for a fingering weight version, which would obviously have to be different because this chart is at this pattern's gauge, which I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it was 4.5 stitches to the inch, whereas a fingering weight version is gonna be half that, so we're looking major shrunk. and a lot more stitches in between the charts and the front of the leg, which is just crazy float locking. So I think it might be more of a more detailed, bigger design, which I'm excited about, but I'm not going to share it now. And then my idea, I mean. And then here I'd have to just keep the pattern repeating because I don't want to lock that many floats. One aspect of this design that kind of got lost in, it gets lost in the two-dimensional world, is the fact that, oh, see, so this is the beginning of the round, and I don't do the fancy trick because I always forget how to do it. So there's a jog between my rows, so it doesn't look as nice as this side. I put bobbles in here. Where can you? Oh, yeah, they're kind of showing up like here. I thought it would be cool for there to be some bubbles coming out that were bobbles, but it really gets lost in photos and it's only seen in person. So I don't know that it's worth the effort. And they may be better read as actual color blocks instead of these bobbles. So yeah, I'll probably make some changes, which means I'll have to make these again, which I don't know when I'll do that because I'm not really inspired to knit these again right now. But I will say they knit really fast because they're so thick, and because they're so thick, they're so warm. They're more house socks than they are actual socks, but that's nice to have this time of year when it can be cold, and I tend to have very cold feet all the time. Like, if I can, like, my feet are usually numb from being cold. If I can feel my toes, that's, I know I'm gonna, it's a good temperature. So yeah, that's something I learned about designing colorwork socks. You need positive ease. You need positive ease, and it's probably a good idea to increase in the leg. I haven't knit enough colorwork socks to know any different, but any thoughts that you have or tips that you are thinking right now and shouting at me, leave them down below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. So moving on to finished objects, I finished the Little Sisters Romper. Oh, I'm going to move my graph paper off my show notes so I don't get lost in my thought process. Little Sisters Romper! This pattern turned out so stinking cute. So adorable. So Little Sisters Romper by PetiteKnit. I knit this for my newborn before she was born in the 3 to 6 month size because I went down a needle size and wasn't sure I was going to get gauge. So I'd rather it be too big than too little. After blocking, turns out I was right on gauge, which was 6.5 stitches to the inch. And I put this on my daughter. I'll put up pictures in here, and then also I'm going to put it on her when I share her with you all at the end of the video. So it's a little tight around her waist and it's a little too long. So I think by the time that it fits her in length, it may be too tight in width. So I think what would have been better is for me to knit up a size and shorter in length. I mean, the babies just come in so many different sizes that it's really hard to write a pattern that's kind of a one size fits all. Even the pattern, like even clothes in the store, you know, some newborns are too big to even fit into a newborn size, and some babies come out newborns way too big. And then as you grow from there, I know with my son, he was so short and wide that he was flying up in the clothes size, but everything was way too long. So it's really hard to just have a blanket size for babies in general. So it's really best to try to knit to the exact measurement of the baby when you can. So because this romper is so adorable and so easy to knit, I want to knit more, but what I'll do is go up in size, shorten the length, and really tailor it to about her body ratios, not her size, because I want her to be able to grow into it, but kind of the ratio of how wide and long she is. So yeah, this yarn is Schmutzerella Yarns on her Spectacular base. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it sparkles. It may not. That's okay. It sparkles. And this is the Dumpster Fire colorway, which was a 2020 inspired colorway that I believe was why is the word escaping me? It was exclusive to Stilly River Yarns, which I think is Stanwood in Washington. It's not super close to me, but it's in the same state, so that's a bonus. But it's close enough I can kind of call it local, right? So yes, Little Sister's Romper, and then I also just finished plying this yarn this morning. So this is 3 hanks, because my bobbins make 50-gram hanks, but look how fluffy. I've got it on a curtain, what do you call it? Curtain ring that you put on your curtain rod to hold your curtains up for the bathroom. Is there a name for this? Probably. I've got it on one of these because it's still drying, so this is still damp, but it's mostly dry because look, it's so fluffy. This is 100% organic Polwarth that was in the Paradise Fibers November Fiber Club, which I did an unboxing for, which you may have seen. I did film dyeing and making this yarn, so that will be up eventually, but I did just finish. I don't know if this is getting blown out, the color. I mean, you can see this is decently color accurate back here. I don't think that my white balance is picking up the full spectrum of this, because it's not, on my viewfinder it's showing as like a very pale brown taupe, but it's got some depth to it. It's more than just, maybe if I cover the screen completely it will fix itself. But yeah, this 100% organic Polwarth is just so squishy. Just absolutely so squishy and fluffy and soft. I love the way this fiber turned out, and it was super easy to spin. I didn't end up felting it, but barely, a little bit in some areas where I think the fiber may have sat too low on the bottom of the pot, or maybe that got grabbed too hard when I was rinsing it. I'm not exactly sure, but I was very careful to let the water cool completely before rinsing. Annie's in her swing, so I don't know if you can hear her back there. I think she's waking up. So yeah, barely felt it at all in some areas. It just was a dream to spin, and I don't think I've ever spun Polwarth before, because I don't remember ever loving a spin this much. I really like this Polwarth yarn a lot, this Polwarth fiber. So natural dyeing with the walnut holes went really well. It's just very time consuming. I think there was like roughly like 2 or 3 tablespoons of walnut hole powder to this full 6 ounces of fiber, so it didn't yield a super dark color. I probably could have left it in the dye overnight before rinsing, but I mean, I think this was pretty much what I was going to get. Oh, so the kit did come with a mordant, although you don't need a mordant with walnut hole powder because it's a substantive dye. It adheres on its own because of the natural tannins in the chemical makeup of the materials. So I decided not to use the alum or cream of tartar that came with the kit, because in my experience with natural dyeing, those mordants tend to affect the feel, the hand of the fiber. In my experience, and I may have been doing something wrong, but the fiber got a little bit scratchier. It did, and I didn't want to mess with this fiber if I didn't need it. It will change the color, like mordants can be used as a modifier to change the color of natural dyes as well, but I was fine with just whatever color came from the walnuts. So that is my walnut dyeing fiber. It's so nice and soft. It's definitely going to become a cowl or a hat. Probably knit, because this is such a thick spin. I did a traditional 3-ply on it on my big whirl, which is a 6:1 ratio, and this is still drying, so I can't tell quite how thick it's going to fluff up, but it does look at least Aran weight, maybe thicker. And with crochet, I don't want anything too thick and bulky and heavy, so I'll probably choose to knit that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to dye, and I'm super happy with the results, and I'm excited to work with the yarn. And then I also finished a diamond painting, the haunted house that I showed on my last episode, which it was kind of sitting funky on the couch, so it's not quite flat, but here it is. It's nice and stiff now because I decided to finish the painting with Mod Podge super high gloss glue because I had some issues with some of the diamond drills popping off the bottom here, specifically in the black area. I don't know if I can get close enough to show you, but I just had issues fitting the diamonds in their spots and they kept popping off, so I went ahead and put glue all over the whole canvas to make sure nothing fell off. There's a kitty! Here, you can kind of see that area is looking pretty rough there, so in the corner. So yeah, I had issues there. I still had my gapping issues, which I mentioned with the moon, but from far away, you're not going to notice it, and now that there is glue over it, I'm not worried about any of the drills falling off. I just need to frame it and hang it. I think I'm going to get one of those magnetic frames from Amazon. Some of my friends that also diamond paint have those, and I was actually sent one with a diamond painting that was gifted to me, and they're really nice. They just magnetic clip on the top and can hang kind of like a wall hanging. So I think that's what I'm going to get for these. And I hear Annie in the back. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to work on this. I am glad it's over, because that fiasco with the S's and the 5s in the sky, it was too hard to read the chart there. And then the issue with the drills at the bottom just not being a uniform shape, so they didn't fit in the spots they were supposed to. So it was kind of a pain of a canvas to work on. I'll just push that out of the way. It was a bit of a pain of a canvas to work on, but I do love the end results, and I am excited to hang it up in the house. So moving on to works in progress, I'm really only working on one project right now, and it's a recent start. So I've got this one living in my Fates Thread project bag here. It's a Nightmare Before Christmas bag, which I don't think I've showed off on my podcast before. Annie's. I love, like, they're like Baby Sally and Baby Jax, and it's just adorable. And it's got this lime green lining. The lime green lining just makes it, the gray on the outside pop. I love it. So I am making another version, I'm looking for the top, of this shawl right here. This is a shawl that I designed, that I still haven't named, that is not released, and I designed it at least over a year ago, and I just took notes, and I started typing my notes up, and I looked at my notes, and then I looked at the shawl, and I'm like, that's not what I did on the border. So I think I wrote down what I planned to do. I did it, didn't like it, ripped it out, redid it, but didn't write down my notes. So, and that would be this section of the border here. So I just kind of looked at what I did, rewrote the pattern, and I'm following it along to see if I did it correctly. Wrote the notes down correctly. So it's interesting following my own written pattern, like it's already typed up and everything. I've already managed to mess up my own pattern, following my own pattern, because I was kind of just looking at the shawl and assuming I remember everything. And I've decided to do the colors backwards. So this color here is the lighter variegated, and then this stripe is the darker. I'm inverting that for this sample. I'm doing a dark color where the lighter color was. So this is what I've started so far. So yeah, I'm going with the light colored stripes. That way the dark can be featured more in the lace portion of the border, and I think I want to do the final row in dark. Oh, and that's the other reason I have to remake this pattern. I remember I crocheted until I basically ran out of yarn, and if I'm going to make changes to the border as far as which color I use, I have to make sure I don't go over 1 hank of yarn, because that's what I was going for, is just a shawl that was 2 colors, 1 hank each. I don't want to use more than 1 hank of each color. So what's kind of fun about this yarn and this project bag combo is this lime green. This yarn, this white yarn, has speckles in it that are gray and lime green. Let's see, maybe from here is reading well. So the light color is, they're both Schmutzerella yarns. The light color is her Dude base in the Freelance Bio Exorcist colorway, which was the Beetlejuice Movie Club exclusive yarn. This was for October of this year. And then this one, the darker color, is Turn This Stupid Fat Rat Yellow, and I'm not quite sure what that reference is. I think it's on our website and I can go look it up. But it's a nice variegated brown color. I mean, it's like a green brown. I'll let you decide for yourself. Maybe if we get all the way up, will that oh yes, look at that. That's so accurate. And so you can see Turn This Stupid Fat Rat Yellow is on the Spectacular base, which sparkles. Dude is a very similar base without the sparkle. I'm trying to find the lime greens. And I'm just going to take a quick break here. I think Annie is probably hungry. So I think that was everything I wanted to say about this project. The yarn, the pattern, why I'm remaking it, that I'm loving the way that it's turning out so far. I really do enjoy the way that the variegated is crocheting up as well. I've been knitting with variegated yarns like this long enough to know how it's going to knit up, but I haven't really crocheted much with them, so that's been really fun. And of course, you can't resist the sparkle. So I'm excited to finish up this pattern and get that tested eventually and out, and I'm excited to have this sample as well. So it's really the only project I have been working on lately. I take it with me to the parent pickup line, which I'll talk more about at the Let's Chat part of the video, which, oh, that's where we are. Let's chat. So I did want to grab Annie and show you her in the onesie real quick. So let's do that. So here she is in her onesie. So this is Annabelle. We call her Annie for short, and she is currently 5.5 weeks old. She's just a little girl, and she just finished eating. So she's, oh, you got a hair on your face from my sweater. So she's a sleepy girl. But if I stand up, I can show you her in the romper. So it fits, oh, sleepy girl. It fits really well around the neck. The straps are like the perfect length, and it's a little tight in the body, but not too bad. It's still comfortable on her, and then you can see it puckers a bit down here where it's too long. Although, I know, baby. I suppose if you use cloth diapers, you might need that extra space. I am not using cloth diapers, so it's not as padded down there. But yeah, so Annie was born November 3rd on Election Day. She actually went past her due date. I literally felt so horrible at the end of my pregnancy. I just wanted the baby out so bad. I was hoping she'd come on Halloween, but that didn't happen. I think on Halloween I started walking several times a day to help my body help her out. I just wanted her out, and I just was so uncomfortable, and I couldn't sleep, and my back always hurt, and there was just all that pressure. And so every day, her due date, the day after her due date, I'm like, come on, baby, what are you doing? What finally happened was, I think she was due on November 1st and born on the 3rd, so it was the day after her due date, I started having consistent Braxton Hicks contractions. So Braxton Hicks contractions, they're not very strong. They are really just a tightening of your muscles and your stomach, and they're uncomfortable enough to notice them, but they're not like labor contractions. But I noticed I was having them hourly, and that's what you look for when you're looking to find out if you're going into labor, is consistency in contractions. They become more consistent and then more painful, and then closer together. So I had been having hourly contractions all day that day, so I went ahead and called David at work and was like, hey, just make sure you get off on time tonight. She might come tonight if things progress, because I know with Jack, my labor progressed so quickly, I didn't have much of a window of like, hey, get to the hospital. I was only at the hospital for 30 minutes before he was born, because it happened so fast. But I slept through most of it, which is also why it happened so fast, or seemed to happen so fast. With Annie, so I want to say, like, I noticed the hourly contractions starting at like 9 in the morning that day, the day before she was born, and they just stayed consistent but not painful, and so I was just waiting and waiting. Finally went to bed that night, and by like 11 o'clock at night, they were getting closer, like 40 minutes, and then by midnight, they were 20 minutes, and they were getting stronger. So I had to wake my older 2 kids up in the middle of the night, take them over to my brother's house and have him watch my kids so that David and I could go to the hospital. And I remember calling them saying, hey, I'm having contractions. By the time I got them up and over to my brother's, it was like 2 in the morning. And I was like, hey, I'm having contractions. They're about 10 minutes apart. I'm going to go ahead and come in. And they're like, oh, well, we really want you to wait until they're like 7 minutes apart and then call us back. So I'm like, okay. I just headed to the hospital anyways. And by the time we were halfway there, they were 7 minutes apart. And so I called them and I was like, hey, yeah, they're closer together. I'm going to come on in. And I'm like, I have fast labors. So I just, I want to be safe. So we went in there and she checked me and I was at least 4 centimeters dilated, I believe. And so she's like, oh yeah, you're in labor, you're staying. And I guess that night they had 3 other women call saying they were in labor and they have fast labors. They drove in, got checked, weren't in labor, and got sent home. So that's why when I called, they're like, why don't you wait? But yeah, I think I got to the hospital at about 3:30 in the morning, and then she was born at 5:30 in the morning, 5:37. So I was not there for very long, and things progressed quickly and very healthy. There was a moment that was scary though, because I remember when she was actually coming out, one of the nurses grabbed my arms and she was like, honey, you need to push now. And it just was, I remember thinking that's strange, but nothing more than that, because it's really hard to think in general when you're in labor. And because I can feel everything, because I don't get an epidural or anything, I kind of push naturally with my body. And my body wasn't pushing when she grabbed me and was like, you need to push now. So I thought that was strange, because your body usually does a pretty good job of taking care of everything on its own. But I was like, fine, she's like obviously very concerned, so I went ahead and started pushing, and then my body kicked in right behind me with its natural contractions, and then she was out. But the reason that happened, I found out afterwards, was because the nurse reached down and felt the cord around her neck, and they freaked. And so that's the other thing. They waited to call my midwife until I was 8 centimeters dilated. And the next contraction, she was pushing out. So, like 5 minutes after she called the midwife, Annie was born. So there was no time. And that's what I mean, like, it's just fast. To go from 8 centimeters to now she's on her way out, it's super fast. So 3 nurses birthed Annie for me. And, well, I birthed her. They assisted with the birth. And yeah, so the one, I think she was just super concerned about the cord around the neck, and they just wanted me to get Annie out as fast as possible. I know, you wanted out too. So that was not scary in the moment because I didn't know, but afterwards I found out. I was like, oh, but she did. She was born so quickly. There weren't any complications other than there was a little bruising around her eye, which I think was the nurses trying to help me get her out as quickly as possible. But other than that, we had this was the I would say the healthiest birth I've ever had, in the sense of like how quickly it went, my pain tolerance, and my recovery. Of course, recovery's not easy at all, but it was easier than my past pregnancies. So I was extremely grateful for that. I was surprised and grateful for my health and the baby's health and both of our recovery. So we're doing really good. It feels amazing not to be pregnant anymore. I can bend over and crawl around on the ground, which I didn't realize that I do that frequently, but I'm a very active person, and I am used to being able to crawl around and climb on things and just be very physical. You're not able to do when you're pregnant. So it's nice to have my body back and live my life the way that I'm used to. And of course it's amazing to have these little baby snuggles. She's so warm and cuddly, and she's such a good baby. So yeah, this is little Annie. As far as what else is going on in my life, this last week we did gingerbread houses with Lori, who is, technically she's my ex-mother-in-law, but we became such good friends that we are still very much friends. So my good friend Lori came over, which is the children's grandmother, and she did gingerbread houses with us. I don't think, I don't remember for sure, so I'll just say it if I haven't said it before, but Lori was diagnosed with lung cancer 3 years ago, and she beat it, and then in this past year, it's come back as bone cancer, and there were some very scary months out of this last year of not knowing what the outcome of that was going to be. I'm happy to announce that, she's pretty much beaten the bone cancer. She is in remission, but she's still on treatments, and the statistics aren't always the best with bone cancer, which is what was so scary to begin with. It's just one of those things. I know there's going to be people out there that are like, with COVID and everything, you shouldn't be visiting anybody, but when you're in a position of you don't know how much time you have left, you have to make some rough decisions like that. And so I'm very glad and grateful that I get to spend time with her and the kids. And yeah, with everything going on, you just have to be grateful for any time you get with anyone. And everyone's just trying to make the best possible choices for themselves. So I'm really happy that she came over to do gingerbread houses with me and my kids. We missed last year, but we did it 2 years ago, and they always have a good time. And this year they were able to decorate their own houses completely by themselves, and they really enjoyed that, so that was good. And then, so that's what I was going to mention about the parent pickup line. So that's the other hard decision that parents are having to make with COVID is school, right? So a lot of schools are distance learning only. Well, the district that my kids go to, they sent out a survey saying, okay, when we are within the correct number of cases, like volume of cases, we're gonna open up in-person school again. But you have the option to distance learn if you'd like to, but your kid will be reassigned to a different teacher, which it's both of my kids' first year of school. It's Emily's first year of kindergarten, and I went ahead and enrolled Jack in preschool back before COVID to have his first year of school. And they have become very attached to their teachers and their classmates, and I was concerned that if I didn't choose in-person learning for them when it was opened, which it looked like would be when cases were below the recommended threshold, and so I went ahead and filled out the survey that they would go to in-person learning when the Department of Health had decided that it was safe. Well, after those surveys, a couple months later, we get an email from the school saying, okay, we're starting in-person learning now, right as all these COVID cases are spiking. And that's because they elected to be part of a pilot program to kind of be the testers of how to properly social distance and what testing would look like and is this safe. And I had already filled out the survey for them to go back to school. And we had less than a week's notice, and I just kind of went with it. So my kids are in-person school right now, 4 days a week. They split kindergarten in half, so not the full classroom is in there at a time. My daughter's in the AM session, and then her other half of her classmates are in the PM session. And I drive them to school and pick them up because they are doing social distancing on the bus. So I figured it would help put less stress on the system if there were less bus riders. And they also said they wouldn't provide afternoon drop-off for preschoolers, so I was going to be picking up my son anyways. Might as well drop off, and pick up both of them. They have us ride in the car and set our kids on the behind us so that they open the doors and let them out so none of the parents are getting out of the car. I mean, there's a lot of procedures in place, hopefully enough. We're only a couple weeks into this. My son has been in-person preschool for a month now, and my daughter has only been 2 full weeks, is when they let the kindergarten and the elementary school back in the classroom, and they're tested every Wednesday, and so far my kids' school has only had 1 positive test each week, and the positive children were not in contact with my kids. So far so good. What makes me feel okay about this choice so far is that nobody in my house is considered high risk, so that is a positive. Plus, I haven't mentioned on here at all, David, my boyfriend, he's a nurse, so he has been in contact with COVID positive patients since COVID. Since before COVID, actually, probably. We don't know for sure, but he was working in Seattle as a rehab nurse during the times when they believe it was in Washington, December and January. And so he probably was in contact with it and got it before anyone even knew what it was. And so he's no longer working up in Seattle. He takes different contracts all over the state, but because he is a nurse, he's currently, my gosh, they allowed him to take a month off of paternity leave, which was really nice to have him help with Annie after she was born and with the kids and everything. But now that he's back at work, he has not had a day off yet. And so he's on day number 9 of working, and 8 of the last 9 days have been 12-hour days. So, and he's supposed to continue working 12-hour days for 2 more days, then he gets a day off, and then he's back at it again. And I don't know how long that's going to last. It's just they're short-staffed on nurses, and they need people to take care of the COVID positive patients. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but luckily this is not my first child, and I feel a lot more comfortable as a mom. So I run this house. This little girl, she's getting so warm. Oh, I know, baby. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all of my Let's Chat. Sorry, it took a little while for me to record again. I did record an episode a couple weeks ago, but I had this external mic that I was trying out, and I think there's an issue with the plug because there was a high-pitch tone over everything, and I could not remove it from the video by editing magic without severely altering my voice. So I decided to just delete it and wait a couple more weeks until I could record again. So that is why there was a delay. I don't know how frequently I'll be recording, but it'll probably be, 1 to 2 videos a month more if I'm able, but we'll see. Yeah, so that's all I've got to talk about this week. Until next time, guys, happy crafting. Bye!